made by Russians about alleged compromising information that they claim to have on the president, a dossier that the president today called fake. A source tells CNN that research for the dossier was paid for in part by Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, as well as the Democratic National Committee.
House Oversight Committee Chairman, South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy. Congressman, good evening. Great to have you here, as always. So let me start with the FBI and the email investigation. What is new there that causes a new look at this?
I think the most recent new thing is the allegation that Director Comey or the Bureau may have made up their mind in May of 2016, whereas they announced their decision in July. So they interviewed 24 witnesses after they had already made up their minds. That's the allegation. But Martha, it's more than that. There were Democrats that were really unhappy with the Department of Justice last fall. There were Republicans that were unhappy earlier in the year. And that's the one entity that everyone has to have confidence in. Even if you disagree with the decisions that are reached, you have to understand those decisions and you have to have confidence that they were apolitical. So Chairman Gillette and I came up with really 6 questions that we think are pretty evenly divided in terms of what Democrats want to know and what Republicans, and the Department of Justice is not above scrutiny, and they're not above review. I have great respect for them, but they're not above scrutiny. In 2016, in my opinion, left a lot of unanswered questions for the department.
Yeah, I know one of those is why the Hillary Clinton investigation was discussed and the Trump investigation in terms of the possibility of Russian collusion was not discussed. But in terms of what you just mentioned and the political aspect of this, is there any evidence that Loretta Lynch made a phone call, that she asked anyone before she took that meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac?
If there's evidence of that, Martha, I haven't seen it, and it has not been brought to my attention. But you put your finger on exactly why you need to have investigations. You need to come up with a list of witnesses, and of course she's on that witness list, and then you need to access the documents. Again, you and I are having this conversation because someone sought to access documents from the Department of Justice. So you do all of that, and then you do your interviews, transcribed interviews, which is my preferred way of doing it, and whatever you learn, you share in a public forum. But you don't start with public hearings, you end with public hearings. You have to do the hard work of investigating before you get to that point.
And in terms of that, do you expect that you will have access to anyone at the FBI who may have been privy to the writing of the Jim Comey draft when he started to put that together 2 months before reaching his conclusion about Hillary Clinton?
Well, that's a really good question, and that's going to be up to the Department of Justice. And so far, in some instances, we have gotten no better cooperation from the current Department of Justice than we did their predecessor. So that remains to be seen, whether or not the Department of Justice is cooperative. I would remind them of this. Congress created them, Congress funds them, and no entity is above oversight. I get oversight done on me every 2 years for sure, and more frequently than that, the Department of Justice is not above having to explain the decisions they reach or do not reach. And it doesn't have to be adversarial. But so far, it's been really difficult to get information from this Department of Justice, and I would recommend that they change that posture.
That's interesting. Here's Hillary Clinton and her reaction to the reopening of these 2 investigations.
I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years, and there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked.
She and others, other Democrats on the Hill, Representatives Cummings and Representative Conyers, are both suggesting that this is just, haze being thrown at the Russia investigation in an effort to distract from the Trump investigation.
Well, I would tell Secretary Clinton and Mr. Conyers and Mr. Cummings, Republicans don't get to write the headlines. We don't get to decide what the media covers and what they don't cover. God knows they've been covering Russia since January. I spent all day in a skiff interviewing witnesses related to the Russia investigation. So I don't know where Mr. Conyers or Mr. Cummings or Secretary Clinton were today, but I know where I was, which is investigating allegations of collusion. So I'm at peace with what I'm doing, but Congress is actually capable of doing more than one investigation at a time. And there was a time when Democrats did not think Jim Comey was the second coming of Christ. Remember, last fall, Harry Reid wanted him prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation.
Sure do. Yeah,
so
it has cut both ways.
I don't know where this...
I got to go, but before I go, have you found any evidence of collusion on the Trump-Russia collusion investigation?
Well, I'm going to be really careful not to do what I think the Department of Justice did, which is draw a conclusion before the end of the investigation. It's still ongoing. To date, there has not been a single witness who has provided a single piece of evidence supporting collusion, coordination, or conspiracy, but we are not through with the investigation.
Well, that opens up a lot of questions about the dossier, which we will save for another day,
Yes,
and another interesting conversation with you as always. Congressman Trey Gowdy, thank you so much.
Major breaking news tonight. The Washington Post first reporting tonight. Fox News confirming the Clinton and the DNC. They, after lying for a year, helped finance the research for that fake news anti-Trump dossier. And also breaking minutes ago, Hillary Clinton's former spokesman, Brian Fallon. They're like racing. Perez is the first. I regret I didn't know about Christopher Steele's hiring pre-election. If I had, I would have volunteered to go to Europe and try to help him. Oh, really? Here with the reaction is the author of Defeating Jihad, the Make America Great Again coalition chief strategist, former deputy assistant to the president, Sebastian Gorka, Fox News legal analyst, Greg Jarrett. What I always love about you is you come with research on everything. You start where you want. Uranium One, the dossier.
The confidential informant cannot be gagged. The U.S. Supreme Court in a...
But he's been gagged. He has a non-disclosure.
But it does not prevent him from speaking to Congress. The U.S. Supreme Court said so. McGrain versus Doherty is the case. You cannot gag a witness when Congress wants to talk about
This is why I love Greg Jarrett, for all of you at home. He always knows his stuff. All right, keep going.
All right. The Clinton dossier. What strikes me is that Christopher Steele went to Moscow and talked to the Kremlin and gathered false evidence.
He paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The victim here is the President of the United States now, and Hillary Clinton's campaign in the DNC was apparently paying for this.
For propaganda,
Right.
for lies, for disinformation from the Russians during the campaign. Oh, Robert Mueller. Are you awake tonight?
If there's collusion, it's Hillary-Russia collusion, not Trump-Russia collusion.
You know, I've been predicting this, Dr. Gorka, this massive boomerang for a long time. I've known that a lot of this evidence was out there and that it was all coming. And I've been telling my audience, it's coming, it's coming. Now the floodgates are opening, if you will.
It's like the last scene from that great Tom Clancy movie, The Hunt for Red October, where the bad submarine commander launches the torpedo and it comes back and it sinks his own vessel. That's what the Russian collusion story has done for the DNC and for Hillary. Let's stop using the word collusion, because the evidence we now have is about subversion. It's about sabotaging the political process, and it's about propaganda. In the Cold War, the Soviet Union used what was called active measures to undermine our democracy. This is the Democrat Party, this is the Hillary campaign using active measures to undermine Donald Trump and to undermine the democratic process in America. It is a shocking story.
And what really stinks here is Mueller, Rosenstein, Andrew Weissman, and James Comey appear to have covered it all up, the Uranium One deal racketeering scheme of the Russians and money paid to Hillary Clinton and a sleeper agent getting close to Clinton. They never notified Congress. They have a legal duty to notify Congress. Congress would have stopped the sale of the asset.
Why would you ever, especially in light of everything the media and Democrats have been saying about hostile actor Vladimir Putin, who in their right mind would give Vladimir Putin 20% of America's uranium and then all the money that flowed back? It stunk to high heaven from day one. Now we just have the evidence.
There are two things you never sell to the Russians: plutonium and uranium, with which you make nuclear weapons.
Right.
They have 1,200 strategic nuclear weapons aimed at us right this minute. And we're supplying them the nuclear material.
They all signed off on it. And then all this money flowed back to them, Dr. Gorka.
That's the big part of the story. So the cover-up afterwards, the destruction of evidence, the gag order, that's bad in and of itself. But the fact is, these people who are supposed to be investigating this administration that has done nothing wrong, they were complicit Hillary Clinton approved this deal. They are making a big deal about $100,000 worth of Facebook ads by Russia, half of which occurred after the election. This isn't $100,000 worth of ads. This is stuff to make nuclear weapons being given to Vladimir Putin. Can we just ingest the enormity of what we're talking about now? This is a massive scandal.
I have said, and I stand by this tonight, they sold out America's national security.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And there's so much more to come. Let's talk about potential crimes.
Jeff Sessions, who recused himself, you may recall, in his confirmation hearing from anything related to Hillary Clinton, he said it not once, not twice, 3 times, can still appoint a special counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton over Uranium One, her interference on behalf of UBS with the IRS, and received an enormous amount of money to Bill Clinton and their foundation, and arms sales. All of that can be the subject of a special counsel investigation. And while you're at it, let's throw in the email case, because to me as a lawyer, it is a clear case of the violation,
mishandling,
of the Espionage
felony,
Act.
Destroying evidence, felony, obstruction of justice, deleting, breaking up,
it would be 110 counts based on 110 classified documents.
I want to go back, Dr. Gorka, Bill Clinton's trip. He wanted to ask his own wife's State Department to approve meetings with Russian nuclear officials. Okay, that's insane. Gets double his speaking fee. He is being paid by a bank that has a Renaissance, that has a financial interest in Uranium One. Then he does meet with Vladimir Putin, and his wife signs off on the deal, and then the $145 million kickback. Now, what other evidence do you need to know that they were not putting the security of this country as their first priority?
You don't need it. Look, 108 emails of TSSCI, highest level SAP classification on a private homebrew server. We expect this from the Clintons. They're the most corrupt political clan in modern American history. But the issue is how the establishment dealt with it under the Obama administration. How somebody who was a suspect in that investigation was allowed to be the counsel to Hillary Clinton. How the BlackBerries were destroyed, and how the laptops that the FBI had were also destroyed by the federal government. That's a banana republic. We have to have Mueller. Mueller has to be fired, and right now AG Sessions has to have a national security special prosecutor.
Listen, Attorney General needs to wake up now. This is not a game anymore. Our security. Holder, Clinton, Mueller, Rosenstein, they all knew in 2009.
Don't forget
and they
McCabe.
approved the deal, Greg.
And Holder actually sat on the CFIUS committee, if you can believe
He was
that.
one of the ones that signed off, one of the 9.
Yeah, it was a unanimous decision. Hillary Clinton presides over it.
All right, guys, we'll have you guys back tomorrow, too.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. Tonight, President Trump is claiming vindication over confirmation. The Clinton campaign and the Democrat Party, the DNC, helped fund an opposition research dossier filled with various unproven allegations, all suggesting then-candidate Trump had direct ties to the Russians and might somehow be compromised. Over the past 2 days, the Trump administration has touted the significant developments in this story. New investigations. They've also talked about a boom on Wall Street and growing confidence on Capitol Hill that tax cuts may actually be real this year. Our latest Fox News polls showed President Trump's approval numbers sliding just before that, ending on the 24th, that rating dropping 4 points from last month to just 38%. Some suggestion it may have been tied to the dust-up over that condolence call and the coverage of it. But with all these new developments, will that change his approval rating? The Trump administration will tell you they don't care. Aides say the president has had 2 good days, and we have some breaking news tonight about those investigations. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Doug McKelway with a big picture look at the collusion accusation timeline and how we arrived at this point. Catherine Herridge with that breaking news and the latest on the revelations in these investigations. And we start off with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. Good evening, John.
Good evening to you, Brett. First of all, let's start with that unverified dossier. And to put this in perspective, this is the same dossier that the former FBI director James Comey felt compelled to tell the president about in secret at Trump Tower back in January. A one-on-one meeting that got the ball rolling on those now famous Comey memos, which led to the appointment of a special prosecutor. On his way to Texas to review Hurricane Harvey relief and headline a Republican Party fundraiser, President Trump unloaded on the revelations that the Clinton campaign and DNC funded the salacious, unverified dossier about him.
Well, I think it's very sad what they've done with this fake dossier. It was made up, and I understand they paid a tremendous amount of money, and Hillary Clinton always denied it. The Democrats always denied it. And now only because it's going to come out in a court case, they said, yes, they did it, they admitted it, and they're embarrassed by it. But I think it's a disgrace. It's just really it's a very sad commentary on politics in this country.
President Trump also weighed in on the investigations 3 congressional committees have launched into how Russia acquired 20% of America's